Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here on February 20th, 2016, talking about the announcement that Diamond Dallas Page is going into the WWE Hall of Fame in Wrestlemania 33 weekend. We're all going to throw it up. Bang! DDP, one of the most well-known, one of the most loved WCW wrestlers. He got his time to wrestle for WWF. I haven't heard a lot about the upcoming DDP DVD, which is going to be released with a documentary on it. I hope. I know sometimes they put out, a series of matches on certain guys, and sometimes guys actually get, their life story told. I'm hoping that they're doing a DDP documentary because I honestly think that his life story is something that really deserves to be told. This is a guy that, was a wrestling fan, but he was in the bar business, but he always had that itch to try to get into wrestling. And, by the time he got in, his back was up against the wall. He got in really late. He started as a wrestler. I apologize. He started as a manager, managing different wrestlers. Actually, he sent in an audition tape, and he got picked up, and he was trying to get 4 other guys into wrestling, but they basically said, just bring me these 2 dudes, and that's what he brought. And one thing leads to another, and he just kept on pushing through. He managed a lot of people in WCW, mostly Scott Hall, the dude was the man. I mean, when it comes down to it, the dude was awesome. By the time his managing career had sort of been pushed to the limit, and he started going to the power plant, and he started working on becoming a wrestler, he was already up there in age. And I think it's Diamond Dallas Page has told the story that it was Dusty Rhodes who was telling him in the power plant that I wish we just could have got you in here 10 years earlier. With the determination and the drive that this guy has had, he could have been one of the biggest stars that there was in the business. Diamond Dallas Page probably most, I guess you can say, became famous when he did the storyline where he was sort of the outcast against the NWO. The NWO kept on recruiting people and signing them up, and one of the people that they were trying to bring in was DDP, and I believe at the time they even played on the storyline that he was good friends with Scott Hall. He was good friends with Kevin Nash. These guys had traveled up and down the road. Back in the day, they had shared hotel rooms. They had shared cars. They had done everything there was in the world. But when it came down to it, DDP didn't want to be just another number in the background of the NWO with Virgil and Big Bubba Rogers and Mike Wall Street. He didn't want to be the guy that just was going out there getting beaten left and right. So he stood up for himself a couple different times. He made it look like he was joining the NWO, only to turn the tides on them and hit the Diamond Cutter. And he really got that move over during that time. I mean, the Diamond Cutter became one of the most popular finishers around the time of 1996, 1997. It was a very big, explosive move that Page could hit from just about any point during the match. Probably one of the biggest feuds that he was ever involved in is when he was involved with the whole WCW versus the NWO time, with him going up against the Macho Man Randy Savage. And around the time that Macho Man, passed away, DDP really started sharing the story. DDP wrote a book when he was in WCW, a lot like Goldberg did. I have it. I actually got it signed when I met him at Wrestle Reunion. One of the most cool, down-to-earth dudes. I haven't read that book, honestly, since that book probably came out in like 2000. So I haven't read that book in 17 years. So I don't know if it really sheds a whole lot of light, but I remember DDP has gone on a lot of podcasts talking about how much Macho Man was the guy who really put him on the map, because Nash and Hall really gave him the opportunity of being the one sort of shining light for WCW to try and get the first strike against the NWO. He's the first one to really get some offense in. While they were building up the whole Sting versus Hogan Starrcade deal, it just kept on being, it didn't matter if it was Luger, if it was the Horsemen, if it was anybody else. It just get beat down, get beat down, get beat down. Because that's how they kept building the heat and kept getting the heat so high, was it didn't matter what they did, you couldn't get one on Hogan, you couldn't get one on Hall, you couldn't get one on Nash. Maybe you beat Big Bubba Rogers, maybe you beat up Virgil, maybe you beat up one of those low guys on the pole, but you couldn't get high on the totem pole. And that's just the way that they did it. Building on the whole determination of him trying to do anything it took for him to get into the wrestling business. His first appearance in wrestling was actually WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. And not a lot of people know about that, where basically he drove Greg the Hammer Valentine and Honky Tonk Man Rhythm and Blues down to the ring in the pink Cadillac. That was actually his car, because Bruce Pritchard was looking around to see what kind of entrance he could do for Rhythm and Blues. Dusty Rhodes mentioned that, in the song they sang about, in the pink Cadillac with Peggy Sue, and DDP, being known from the bar business, had a pink Cadillac. And, they asked DDP if he would make the drive from Florida all the way to Toronto to deliver the car. And he wanted to be a part of wrestling so bad and thought this was his one opportunity to be a part of WrestleMania. He did it. And I just can't believe it. He rode with WCW all the way up until the dying days. He got signed by the WWE, and at that time a lot of guys were just sitting on their big money contracts from WCW and Time Warner. There was guaranteed money. WCW might have closed, but even if they were just sitting at home on their couch watching Oprah or watching Dr. Phil, the checks were going to keep coming in because they were guaranteed by Ted Turner that no matter what, they were going to get it. And that's why a lot of those guys signed those deals in order to go to WCW. And Dallas, knowing that time was against him, I believe that even a year left on his contract of guaranteed money, took the buyout, which was, I believe 10 to 20 cents on the dollar from Turner, and then went inside with Vince for less money. Ended up coming in during the Invasion angle, doing the whole stalker gimmick against Sarah Undertaker, and kicked off the career as being one of the main guys in the Invasion, because they didn't have Goldberg, they didn't have Hall, they didn't have Nash, they didn't have Hogan, they didn't even have Flair at the time. It was just DDP and Booker. And if they didn't do the ECW Invasion, teaming up the teams, how weak of a team would WCW really had, because Vince wasn't going to give those guaranteed contracts that WCW had, because then he would have had to give the same deals to Rock, to Taker, to Stone Cold Steve Austin, to Triple H. All of those guys would have wanted the same amount of money, so everybody had to be on the same playing field. So Vince had to wait for those deals to die, and maybe he tried to start WCW too soon. I believe it was a back injury that got him out of wrestling. He ended up leaving WWE, and he did some runs for TNA, but nothing really to move the needle. I mean, I really wasn't watching TNA at that time. I didn't even know that he had a run in TNA until he was already gone and it was over. Of course, he started DDP Yoga, which he's more famous for now. I would say he's probably made more money from DDP Yoga than he's ever made in the world of wrestling. But he's gone out his way. You've heard the testimonies from Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, a lot of guys out there who really tell you that you're not just trying to push an ad to make some money off DDP, that are really telling you this is the real deal. This is what they do. You've got Mick Foley doing it. Of course, a part of DDP Yoga was he took, Scott Hall and Jake the Snake Roberts in, and he brought them into the house and really turned their lives around. They've got the Scott Hall documentary through WWE that you can see a lot of stuff on there, or I'm not sure if it's still on Netflix or if you have to buy the DVD. The actual documentary on the resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts, which was done by DDP, an excellent DVD. Like I said, check for it on Netflix. It might still be on there. I own the DVD, but I ended up watching it on Netflix because it just was easier to watch it that way. But a really, really good story about how he changed those guys. I haven't heard anything about it. I heard the rumors that Vader was going to go stay with DDP and try and turn his life around, because everybody heard the rumors of Vader not having that long to live. I haven't heard any updates on that. Honestly, once this video is done, I'm going to go check out DDP's timeline on Twitter and see if he is posting anything about that and about if he is changing Vader around. But DDP going to the Hall of Fame is one hell of a deal. And I think I'm glad that he's going in there. And I met the guy in a convention, Wrestle Reunion, Wrestlemania 28 weekend. A really down-to-earth, cool dude. Gave me the diamond cutter. Bam, right there in the middle of the place. And a real class act. A real cool dude. Some say he's pushing the gimmick with DDP Yoga, but I think he's honestly, it's who he is. And I think that he's an awesome guy. He deserves it. I'm surprised with Hall and Jake the Snake's going in to Hall of Fame WrestleMania 30 weekend. I'm surprised it didn't happen at 31. Really surprised it didn't happen at 32. But at least he's getting his day at 33.